the biggest station in the world, playing all of today's hits. You're listening to Instinct Radio.
Hello, welcome to Women of Empowerment, where we empower you. My name is Kayl. I am the radio talk show host, customer service and leadership coach, as well as mentor and motivational speaker. Thank you so much for joining us on today. We appreciate it. We have absence today from our radio talk show host for this show, Marcel and Audrey, but I will see you all on next month. So today we're going to be talking about domestic violence. As we know, if you listen to the news at all, you hear all the time where something is going on, and it is because of domestic violence. I just came from my hometown where it touched me near and dear to my heart, where a neighborhood friend, a classmate, actually got shot from domestic violence. So, I don't know anything about the story or anything like that, but it is touching so many people. So I have a wonderful group of females here, as well as we're going to talk about males as well. But I have a wonderful group here that's going to be discussing it, and we're going to talk about educating and prevention of domestic violence. So I'm going to start here and let everyone introduce themselves, starting with Miss LaNita.
Good evening. My name is LaNita. Good evening. My name is LaNita Jo Fox. I am in the entertainment business. I am a model, an actress, a photographer. I'm a health wealth consultant, and also I am writing my book. My book is I'm still working on it, but I would like to share with people what my experience was in my domestic violence relationship.
Yes, hi. I'm Davida Rose, formerly Donna Savage. When I was Donna Savage, I had suffered domestic violence for 18 years, and I also wrote a book. I'm working on my movie to the book, and I'm here to actually help someone, even if it's one person, to escape domestic violence, just as I did. I was very fortunate, but there's a lot of women who are not that fortunate. So I'm here to share my story.
Yes, hi. I'm Samantha Macedo, Vice President of Prevention and Outreach for Partnership Against Domestic Violence, and I'm here representing the organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
And I am Mechelle Stephens, author of Unmasking and the workbook UnMasked and UnAshamed. I just am here to tell my story, and hopefully others won't endure the pain and hide behind a mask for years and be ashamed to tell what happened, because once the shame is gone, then the liberty can come.
Awesome. So we know that we are running on Facebook Live. We do that so you're able to share it out to your different friends who you think, and that's on your page, who you think may benefit from this episode here. But I want you to also download the Instinct Radio app as well. That's the only way our producers can know that you're out there and you're paying attention to what's going on here, that we have an awesome show. So we try to bring you what we think that is going to help all of our communities out, and domestic violence is definitely one of those things. So thank you to all of our guests for being here. I really appreciate you coming in and taking the time out, especially on a Sunday evening, to discuss this topic, because I know it's not easy to discuss it, and to let people into your private lives and let them know some things that have gone on and all of that. So we're going to go around table. First of all, I want to thank my viewers for coming on. I can see any questions or comments that you may put on the live feed. I can, read your questions out on air, but you can also call to be on air at 478-569-6474. You can call that number, and you can also text that number as well. We can read your comments out there, but we can also read them live from the Facebook Live stream as well. So thank you so much for joining us on today. So I want to start with Miss LaNita and just get a little bit more information about what you actually went through.
Well, for 10 years, I was married to a man who I got into the relationship thinking I could help him, I can change him, which was the wrong thing to believe. When I first met him, he addressed himself as, he used to sell drugs. He used to do drugs. But my mother is a deaconess and my grandfather was a pastor. And I believed him. And he was tall, dark, and handsome. my book that I'm working on is called Tall, Dark, Handsome, But. I've already got it copyright, so I'm still working on it. But for 10 years, I lived with him, married to him. He was physical and verbal abuse to me. He's put a gun to my head. He choked me. He would verbally say things to me and told me that I think I'm this, I think I'm that. He used to say, you think you're white? I'm like, I don't think I'm white. Maybe you think I'm white. I don't think that. And I was afraid. And I kept trying to do things to make him happy. If I knew that he liked fried fish and French fries, I would fry fish and French fries for him, thinking if I gave him what he wanted, he would be nice to me. So I did that for 10 years. The last 3 years of my marriage with him, he would go on these drug binges, crack binges, and I would not see him for days. Was worried about him. I would call him, and I said, when you coming home? When you coming home? I'm on my way. I'm on my way. He never come home. He never came home. And I went into my retirement, paid cash for our home, furniture, different things, and thinking I could buy him. I can buy him to make him love me and like me. And it didn't work. So one day, I said, I don't care what I lose. And I got some movers, and I left. And he said, oh, you're going to leave me, hon? I said, yeah, I'm going to leave you. Enough is enough. And I lost a lot. Lost my home, cars, furniture. But I have a peace of mind now. I really have a peace of mind. And I forgive him, but I'll never forget. So I just thank God because of what I've gone through. It's made me a stronger woman. And I will not accept any less because I deserve the best, because I am the best. I'm a woman of God. And I'm not going to accept just because you want me or you expect this out of me. No. I've been single now for almost 2 years. And I'm happy. I'm at peace with myself. And I keep myself busy so I don't have to worry about being lonely. If I get lonely, I got a lot of friends I can call and embrace.
So let me ask you, y'all been divorced for about 2 years?
I got divorced November the 19th, 2015.
Okay.
So, but the last 3 years of my relationship with him, I would call my stepmother and I call my girlfriends and let them know what was going on and let them know how he was treating me. And they were afraid for me. And I was afraid, and I was scared to notify the authorities because I said, what are really they going to do? They're going to lock him up, he'll get out, and he'll harm me. There's no protection. There's still no protection.
And we're going to talk about that in just 1 second. Yeah. We're going to talk about all the different things that they can do.
And I thank God I did not have any kids by him because I would probably disown them.
Don't say that.
Well,
they didn't have anything to do
I know,
with
but
it.
you know what? One thing I want to share with women, you need to know that man, if he's such a good man and he's all of this, a lot of men say, I'm a good man, I'm a this, I'm a that. Then how come you ain't got no woman? And how come that other woman left you? Why did she leave you? If you all of that, how come you don't have no woman? I have a reason why. I have chose to be single because really I'm afraid of relationship. I'm afraid of not to trust and believe because to me they come with the 90 days somebody else's personality. It's not even really them. So
thank you so much.
You're
for
quite
sharing
welcome.
That. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yes. I got married when I was 16, and I had married him thinking that I was in love. But at 16, you don't really know what love is about. So I had met him when I was 14 years old, and we were in high school together. And the first thing that I started to notice was that he was just very, very jealous, and he didn't want any man looking at me at all. If a man would look at me while we were even walking down the street, he would start an argument with them. And the first time that he actually assaulted me, we were walking down the street. We had had a great day, and we were talking and laughing. It was a beautiful sunny day, and it was a car that was coming. And it was guys in the car, and one of the guys said, not even disrespectful, he said, wow, he said, you have a fine woman there. I wish that was my girl. And then I saw his face. And when I saw his face just changed. And I started trying to still talk to him to get him out of that mood, but he wouldn't. And when we got inside, he said, "Why did you make them look at you?" And I said, "I didn't make them look at me." And then he said, "Yes, you did." And then when I tried to say something else, he slapped me so hard that my head went into the wall, and then my nose started pouring blood. And then I dropped to the floor, and he left me there. And when he came back, he picked me up because I was still there. I was shocked. And from there, it just escalated, and it escalated and escalated. And I stayed with him for 18 years before I finally escaped. And when I did escape, that was on November of 1996, he had punched his hand through a thick glass wall unit, and his thumb was actually hanging off. And if he didn't get to himself, he would have got to me. And I think that night I would have died. So that's when I finally decided to leave. And I didn't turn around. I didn't turn back. I moved on from New York to New Jersey, and I reestablished my life. And actually what made me write my book was my divorce attorney. She had me to write a synopsis. And when she read it to a group of 1,000 women, they were all crying. And then they said, "Is she still alive?" And she said that they couldn't believe that. She said yes. So she told me to write the book, and which I did. I'm glad I did. But even writing the book, it took me 10 years because I wasn't familiar with computers at that time, and it kept crashing, and I put the book away. But then in New Jersey, it was a triple murder suicide, which was a friend of my second husband because I had remarried. And then that's what made me just take this book and write it and get out and be an advocate. And I'm actually a advocate for domestic violence. And my difference in advocacy is that I gear towards the abuser, because I always say if we don't help the abuser, we're always going to have victims.
Right.
So
That's true.
Wow.
That's true. Awesome. Miss Mechelle?
Well, I wrote my book, Unmasking. It took, like you said, it took about 6 years to write because it was painful to go back and revisit. And mine was not a great deal stint of one incident of domestic violence. It started when I was younger, when I was molested as a child, and then again at the age of 12 and 17, date rape. And so then I started to not know what my value was. So I started a magnet for the bad boy types and the ones that drank and did drugs. And I was the total opposite. I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs, but it was this magnet with me with the bad boy types, thinking I could fix him, thinking I could change him to be what I wanted him to be, looking for love and validation. And so I found myself at the last stint it was a tremendous case of domestic violence. I had to jump out the window with no clothes on from waist down because he had undressed me and had a bandana around my neck and a shoe up against my face, and the only way I knew to get out was to jump out the window. And so actually I put the actual warrant when I was writing the book, and God wanted me to unmask because he said there's so many people dealing with that but are so ashamed and behind the mask and mask those feelings. I'm okay, it was nothing. And for 16, 17, 18 years, that's probably what you told yourself. I'm okay, it's nothing. I'm going to get up, I'm going to brush myself off, I'm going to wear the smile. And so behind the smile was so much pain, and I had to tell my story. And it wasn't for me, it was a matter of necessity. A lot of people had said to me, "Mechelle, how did you write the book, and why did you write the book of Unmasking?" And they say words like strong and brave and transparent. But this is the polished version because, like I said, for 6 years I put it on the shelf. I wasn't going to write it. It was too painful. I had to go back and put verbs and adjectives to describe that pain. And I mean, when I glossed over it, it was okay. I could write. But when I had to go back and put emotion and feeling with it, and now I look back at the book and I was like, who was this little girl? She was so lost. I mean, even in your book, you probably don't even recognize the woman that you had become because they take away from you so much of the essence who you are. So that's where Unmasking came from, and I tell my story so that others can come from behind the mask and live a life of liberty and worth and value.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you for doing that. Okay. Ms. Sam, tell us a little about your organization and if you were a part of domestic violence.
Yeah, sure. The organization Partnership Against Domestic Violence is a local organization. It serves the counties of Fulton and Gwinnett. This year we're commemorating our 40th year anniversary. We never said celebrating because we wish we wouldn't have to exist, right? But here we are in Atlanta. We're one of the largest organizations, and that really means that we're one of the organizations that has the most beds. We handle about 25% of the calls statewide. We do have a lot of programming that just it's not only about helping those who are in a crisis, but working to prevent intimate partner violence. And so we do have a large scope of services that we offer. We do have 2 shelters that are in confidential locations. We have one in Fulton and one in Gwinnett. We have supportive housing programs, legal advocacy programs that help those who need a protection order. We help those people navigate the court system, because it can be really confusing and intimidating. So we have advocates in place in both Fulton and Gwinnett to help those who need it navigate that process. And then we also, of course, have our prevention services, or prevention programming that is about, for example, talking to young people about what is a healthy relationship. So we have a healthy relationships curriculum. We hold an annual teen summit in which we invite adults and teens to come and learn more about what is dating violence, what are the warning signs, what does it look like outside of physical abuse, and of course learn more about healthy relationships, and how to have conversations among themselves for those topics. We also have a Teens Against Dating Violence Advisory Board, meaning we send out an application, and all these teenagers who are already leaders in their community, we've trained them, we've worked with them so that they can carry out this message of healthy relationships and dating violence. We also do a lot of outreach. We want to make sure that the community knows we're out there. It's incredible that after 40 years, people still don't know what are the resources out there. And so we try to do as much outreach and awareness as we can, as well as we do targeted outreach. We go to like the Latino community, the faith community. Right now we're doing a lot of work in trying to engage more men in the work. So we've been doing a series of breakfasts to engage men in the conversation, so that they can be part of this work that we do. And so so in a nutshell, that's what we do. But we again, we've been around for quite a long time. We've started out as an all volunteer run organization. So a lot of people that felt like not enough was being done, of course, got together and decided to do something about it, much like the women at this table who said, I really need to share my story so that others can learn from it. So that's how we started.
That's awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. Again, our topic is domestic violence. On today, you can call in and be live on the show, or you can send a text in with any questions or comments you may have to 478-569-6474. So I guess most people think about, when they think about domestic violence, they only think about the physical part, the part that they can see that the woman has gotten a black eye, or she gotten a bone broken or something like that. And this is just a conversational style show, right? So I don't have to call on you to answer. Just if you have input, just input it. But can each one of you all share what are some forms of domestic violence?
It's good. I mean, I work some with Partners Against Domestic Violence, and the signs, control. It's power and control. That's the main thing that abuse is. If they can isolate you, if they can do it mentally, tell you you're not going to be anything. And it's actually a cycle. They start out with the tension building stage. Anything you do, you didn't cook my this right, you didn't iron my this, you didn't do this. And so then the tension is building. And then after that, it's the outburst. That's when the black eyes come. That's when the smashing of the tables. That's when, if you wouldn't have, and they would put it back on you. And it's a mental mind control. And, well, if you would have did this, then I wouldn't have had to do that. And then it's the honeymoon stage. And then they go back all over. They buy you the diamond furs. They buy you the things that you want. They buy you the flowers. And then you take the ride like, oh, it's going to be okay again. And then it's the next thing. If you didn't wear your hair the way way he wanted you to wear hair.
Telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Telling you what to do.
And so some of
where to go.
some of the signs are again, it's power and control. They isolate you. They belittle you. They have broken relationships prior to your relationship. They can't hold relationships. They've had bouts with the law. Those are some of the signs, and their past record, you can tell. So those are some of the signs that I noticed.
It's kind of like, you want to do a resume. Your last girlfriend, what was she like? Why did y'all break up? Can I talk with her and find out what's your bad faults? Because if, these guys think they Mac Daddy, or they think that this and that. If you're all of that, how come you don't have that perfect woman? And then you want to know, maybe it's something that from their dad. If they were in an abusive family, they may have seen their mom or their dad fight, so they think it's okay, so they start doing it.
Yeah.
So they could be abused, whether it's physically or verbal abuse. Where are you going? What time you coming back? Not trusting you. Why you wearing that? You got too much makeup on, or why you got that hair on, or my ex, let me tell you what he did to me. I went to Ohio, and I'm gonna put this out there, and I went to go visit my kids, and I came back, and he grabbed me when I got back and put his finger up me and just say, I want to see if you were screwing anybody. Now I want to say, boo boo. If I did that, I'm gonna have some safe sex. And just to, because he was bigger than me. So, he was bigger than me. So, I allow him to do things to me because I didn't want to get hurt. I wish I was like J-Lo in Enough. When she learned how to fight, she kicked his butt. And that's one of my favorite movies, Enough. And she kicked his butt. So they will try to tear you down and do things to you where you have no control, and where you going, what time you coming back. And then you find yourself, well, I'm on my way to the store. I'll be back at 8. Well, you told me you would be back at 8. It's 8:05. Where you at? Where you doing? Who's that? So you find yourself trying to please them because if you don't, you can get hurt.
Don't want to add anything to it?
Right, yes. And definitely it's the past, because with my ex, his father was very, very violent towards his mother. And he even threw a pot of hot grits in her face. She had 10 kids by him. And every time she had 10 kids, because she told me herself, every time she would come home from the hospital, if she didn't have sex with him, he would take the bed down. And she would even have to sleep in the closet. So that's how violent he was. And then with the 10 kids, they would see what he would do. And one Sunday morning, she was cooking a pot of grits for, imagine, 10 children and him. And he just took the pot and threw it in her face. And then they just all saw the skin just come right off of her face. So this was the home that he grew up in. And unfortunately, I didn't listen to my mother because she actually had heard about his family. But I just thought that I was, in love, and I just went on with the relationship. So going into the past of the abuser is very important, because they have to actually get to the point where, I would say, not forced, but and that's what I was trying to do with my advocacy when I was in New Jersey, was to get them to a place where it's safe for them, maybe a man's cave or whatever you want to call it, but a place where they can feel safe to talk about their past. Because if they don't get to that pain that's in them, they're going to continue to project it, and it's going to continue to be victims. So it's that, and then also the jealousy is like, I would say, number one for me. And I think that a lot of victims, that's number one, because the jealousy is to the point where they don't want anyone to be around you. They don't want no one to look at you, nothing. And then for a victim, and it's not even a concern for the victim, because with me, I would even say to him, well, do you want me to walk around with a bag over my face so that no one can look at me? And that's how I would feel when I would be out with him, was that I would have to cover my face, because if anyone looked at me, I would get it.
And right now, I think the court is ordering. I think it's called FVIP, where the aggressor has to go to classes and is mandated that they go, and if they don't, then they can get locked up. So they are putting things in place now that the abuser has to go to, not only anger management, but it involves the whole family aspect of it, how it affects the kids. And I mean, they have to go through a vigorous class on why they do what they do, why they violate, why how it affects the families, and they make them look inside and see, what is it that's causing me to be so violent. So they have to do the homework, and it's court order.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I will add, because these were great, excellent warning signs to talk about, is that sometimes we don't really follow our instinct. A warning sign is more like there's an alarm going off in your head. And we don't listen to it. We don't listen to our gut instinct that says something is off here, right? And that is really, now a warning sign could be at the time to talk. Like, you keep saying this, you keep doing this, and you know what? I don't think that that's gonna work for us. And if you're avoiding that conversation because you think that the other person is going to blow up, is going to, have a fit, then that's your biggest warning sign right there. You can't even approach the conversation about something that is happening at a very early stages, and you don't like it, and you don't want it to move forward that way, and you can't even have that conversation with them.
I saw those warning signs. But I was afraid to society I was a failure. And because I had been married before, divorced, and he would throw that up in my face. Oh, you can't keep no man. You can't get no man. So I kept saying, I'm going to make this work. I am not a failure. I'm going to make this work. Yeah. And I kept telling myself, and then it was a time I said, I can't do this no more. I can't. And I lost a lot. I lost a bunch. But I'm at peace with myself. And that's the most important thing for me, is to be at peace. I lost a lot, but I'm at peace. And it took a while for me to accept I'm getting out. I'm getting out. And I had told my brother what I was going to do. He said, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. You watch. Yes, I am. You know you're not. I said, yes, I am. You watch. He said, you going to go back? I said, no, I'm not.
Because she's gone back so many times.
Right. Because I had left him and went back thinking I can make it better. And that was the worst of the worst thing to do. But, I learned from it. And I'm stronger. I believe I'm stronger. I am stronger.
I think statistically, a woman goes back 7 times before she can successfully leave.
Oh, really? Huh?
Because
About 7
it's just
times.
like what you say. You don't want to be a failure. You want to be able to make it work and all of these things. I think, but one of the things that I look at when I look at domestic violence cases and hear about them, where is the family? Why did family didn't do anything? Why they didn't
because you
intervene?
won't listen. Because you won't listen. I told my stepmother, and I told my children. I told my one daughter. My other daughter, I didn't tell her because I know she'll hit the signal. And she said, Mom, I don't care. Mom, I said, but y'all don't know. But see, sometimes we don't want to tell our family, because if you get back together,
Yes.
Exactly.
so, but I told one of my daughters and didn't tell the other one. But when I finally told all of my kids, bam, that was it. And I'm glad I did. And my son said, Mom, because he said, Mom, get out now. Mom, get out. Because they heard his voice and they heard what he was saying to me. So they said, Mom, get out. And I'm like, well, where'd I go? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And I never regret getting out. That was a true blessing. And I remember when I did, I'm like, wow.
But what signs can family members look for so that they can help their loved ones and not wait until something drastic happens?
Well, a lot of times, they threaten to out the family. If you tell, especially if you got kids, they will threaten to do something to their own kids, and they will threaten to do something to your parents if you tell. So, if you got that hanging over your head, you're definitely not going to tell. And so a lot of times they use that threat tactic that I will kill you, I'll kill your family, I'll kill these kids. And so at that point, nobody's going to tell. But if you can find a close confidant, and the thing that you need to do is to get you a way of escape. You need to plan it out. You need to make sure you got somewhere you're going. You tell somebody you got enough money stashed, because a lot of women go back because they don't have the funds. They don't have the funds, and he's the sole provider, so they find themselves going back. Find your way to escape. If you get with Family and Children's Service, if you got kids, get with Partners Against Domestic Violence. Get you an escape plan, and then work the plan. And no matter how painful it is when you do get out, I know people say, well, why did she go back? Why did she go back? But you don't know the totality of the whole thing. And, you know, when you do leave, you don't know what she left behind that he can hold over her head. And they're doing this new thing. And then I'm going to shut up. But they're doing this new thing. The abusers find out that people are so attached to their pets. And so now they threaten to hurt the pets. And so I think with Partners Against Domestic Violence, and I think it's another one, that they have a safe house for the animals. And I thought that was phenomenal, that, yeah, you can take and put the animals in a safe house.
I want to say one thing to ladies who, you know, everyone should have their social security card, your driver's license or your passport, your birth certificate. One thing I remember they told me, back up in a driveway. So if you have to pull out in a hurry, just go. You know, that way, you know, you're not backing up trying to get out. Because I know I had to, you know, get my my birth certificate, you know, different things for legal things, and did not want to go back into the house because he was still there, and I had to get a police to escort me. So he made it like it was my fault that I was the bad Joe. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you the one with the record? You got 54 felonies, and you got this, and So, but God is good, and I thank God that I did get out alive, and I ask God to continue to protect me, and I forgive him all the pain he put me through, but I don't forget. I don't forget.
And I even say in this, I have in the back of my book a list of things that you should do when you're preparing. But also, when you live on the higher floors, you can get those roll-up ladders, so that if you have to, you don't have to jump out and, you know, risk breaking your leg or something like that. So it's different things that you should definitely have. And then even if you have to keep it with a good friend or in the trunk of your car or something like that, but you should have just a small bag always packed, so that you can, you know, escape and not have to even think about going back and what you left, you know. And when I left, I just left everything there, because I just know that whatever it was that I left back there, my life, you know, I had that, and that was the important thing, you know. And I'm so thankful that I'm here to even, you know, share my story, because I'll tell you, just to even know that we have a memory, you know, that can reflect on what happened, you know, it's just like, it's really a miracle that we're all even here.
So each of you were in one domestic violence relationship. And I know yours stemmed from when you was a teenager, and that's what I'm getting to. Did you have any, as you look back on it, because sometimes we can't see things when we're in it, we have to look back on it. We have to go back and look, and we kind of see, you know, how did this even happen? How did I allow this to happen? Was there anything in your teenage years that led up to this?
Yeah, I would say with me, I was trying to get out of my mother's house, and with my mom, she did the best she could with 5 kids, but we didn't grow up rich. So I wanted to get a better life. And then when he came along, he did have a small job, and he would buy me things, and I just took that as probably more like a father figure, because I didn't have a father, you know, in my household.
What was the age difference, if you don't mind me asking?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. But he looked older. Even my oldest brother, he thought that he was 17 and I was 14, but my brother thought he was like 24, 25, because he did look older and he was big and muscular. But the whole thing is, though, when you're that young, you just don't even know what love is, because that's not where you're supposed to go when you're 14. You know, you're supposed to grow and you're supposed to mature and then get into a relationship. But I definitely gear out towards young females, and I try to get them not to make my mistake. You know, take your time, you know, in a relationship. You don't have to rush, especially not at 14 or 15.
Right.
Well, I don't know if I can say my self-esteem was low. Maybe I was lonely, but he was so charming. You know, men look at you and they lust you and they say those things that you want to hear. You know, and they woo you. Oh, baby, oh, you got pretty eyes, your hair, nice legs. They say those wonderful things that we love to hear. And kept saying those things, and I believed it. But that was just his game. You know, he'll say to you, me, everybody else, baby, you look good, girl. You're just what I've been looking for, baby, girl. I just love the way you look. Girl, you look good. And I want to say, I heard that from the last man. You know, and it excited me. It made me feel good. And he kept bringing it on. I kept being fed by his words. And it felt good, you know, when someone says something nice and kind to you, your eyes, your hair, I just love, girl, you look good in that. It makes you feel good, so you feed off of that. You feed off of it. It feels good, and it fills you up. And then once you're in a relationship, and then you see the real them, you're like, how do I get out? Can I get out? Right. You know, because you want to get out, but can I? Alive, yes.
What about you, Mechelle?
I pretty much, it was what they both described, but I had, and now I know what it is, it was codependency, and I didn't know the big word back then, but it was always trying to save the other person and put myself last, and, you know, he need this help, and all the while losing who I was. Right. So, and that started at a young age, and now I take it for the positive. I do ministry, but back then I know who to give my love and now I know who to give it to. I know who to give my attention, my time, my love, and I know what true love is. But back then I was given what I wanted back, and it was codependency, always trying to help, So yeah, so that was just a cycle. Yeah,
we you know, we take care of our babies, we take care of our children, we take care of other people before we take care of ourselves.
Exactly.
And we're supposed to take care of ourselves first. But we had the tendency, the babies, you know, the baby got earache, we take care of the baby, feed the baby, dress the baby. We dress ourselves last. We do everything last for ourselves, and that's part of being a woman, a female.
Yeah, you know, we don't even think about ourselves, and that just made me go back to when I first left him. I started going through therapy, and the therapist, the first session, I was on the train, I could just tell you, and I was saying, what am I going to sit there and talk to her about for an hour? And then when we started, she asked me just certain questions, and at the end of the session, she said, I'm going to point something out to you. She said, I asked you specific questions so that you can answer for yourself. She said, you never once talked about you. She said, you talked about everyone else. She said, you talked about your mother, you talked about your son, you talked about him. She said, you talked about other family members, but you never once talked about you. And she said, from now on, this is going to be a celebration of Donna. That's what she said. So she said, look forward to next week. And that lady, it helped me to build myself and to know who I was. And I'm so thankful. And I put her in my book because she helped me to know who I was as a person.
Because you can forget who you are. You can forget that because you're so busy, just like you said. You know, you may not even like the hamburgers and the french fries, but but you wanted to do it for him, so you would fix it every day and you would eat it just because you wanted. So you began to like it, but really in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't even eat french fries and hamburgers. So you kind of forget who you are and what you like.
You know, I lost so much self-esteem in myself. He told me I was too old to model and too old to act, and that's what I'm doing. And when I would put on something, he said, why are you wearing that ugly dress? Why don't you wear the dress I bought you? You know, and the things that he would buy me, I remember once he bought this dress, I hated it so bad, I gave it to Goodwill. It was so matronly. I'm like, this is not even me. And he thought that he knew how to do my hair. He thought he knew how to do everything. I used to do this, I used to do that, and I did this. I'm like, and then he made me feel like I was stupid, and he didn't even have a GED.
I remember my mom had a friend. It was so funny. She was married to a younger guy, and he was like that. He was very controlling, and he would always tell her that he couldn't stand any colored hair. And my mom been blonde ever since I remember her. You know, I've never seen her natural color, and he would always say, I don't like this, I don't like makeup, I don't like this. And when she found that he was cheating, it was a woman that wore massive amount of makeup. My mom showed me the picture. It was so funny. Massive amount of makeup with blonde hair. You know, just the opposite of what he was trying to
Those
make her
comments
be.
always make me think, well, why are you together with, you know, exactly, like say, you know, why did you decide to start dating, go forward with this relationship if you don't like any of this stuff, physical stuff that this woman represents, right? Exactly.
It's like when we get with a man, you know, we try to change him into what we want. And you're like, so why was I attracted to this person? What was about this person I was attracted to? But when it talks about the jealousy part, and I want to get to that, when we talk about jealousy, did you have anything else to add on the teen thing?
Yes, I did want to add. I wanted to talk about
that.
2 stats that that I think really paint the picture of what's going on here in Georgia. The first stat is about where Georgia ranks in killings of domestic violence. So Georgia is number 8 in the nation when it comes to specifically men killing women. And then the second stat is about dating violence. Georgia has the 3rd highest percentage of high school students experiencing physical abuse from a dating partner, a boyfriend and a girlfriend. So think about those stats that show, again, that Georgia ranks pretty high in these issues. One is, of course, the end result of a fatality, right? And the other one is dating violence. And are those 2 stats connected? And how are they connected, right? So the way that they are connected is, yes, we do have a large percentage of young people who are experiencing dating violence at a very young age. And when that is happening, those unhealthy behaviors and abusive behaviors get cemented really early on. And so even if the person stays with that relationship as they're growing into adulthood, the violence tends to come quicker and be more violent than if they hadn't experienced abusive relationships at a younger age. So yes, there is something that connects the issue with abusive relationships in adulthood. Additionally, there's a lot of things about when it comes to the people that the cases that are studied when it comes to the fatalities. A lot of those victims who ended up being killed by their partner started dating at a very young age, again, because perhaps they never learned at their home what a healthy relationship looks like. How do you resolve conflict? If you disagree with your partner, how do you resolve that instead of getting escalating all the way to throwing things, breaking things, cursing each other out? How do you resolve conflict in a healthy way? Where do you go to if you're experiencing this? Is there a trusted adult in your life that you can go to talk to, right? Because sometimes your peers may not have, they won't have all the answers, but a trusted adult, can guide you through that process, especially if you need a protection order, which in Georgia you have to have an adult do it for you. It doesn't have to be a parent, but it has to be an adult. And then, of course, lastly, I think some of you might be aware of, when you're 16, your brain is still developing. And it isn't until you're, I think, 25 years old that your brain completes its development. And so throughout that period, you tend to take more risks, especially when it comes to relationships. Yes. You'll take a lot of risks that even if there's a small kind of reward, you will take that risk. And so that's why, again, we need to talk to more young people about what does a healthy relationship look like, and really model, as adults now, model those relationships to young people so that they can see that they don't have to take that.
I think this what the question I was about to ask and discuss was about jealousy, because I think when we're teenagers, when we get the jealous thing, we always think it's cute.
So cute. Right. Yeah.
And then you begin to think it's cute when you're a little bit older because you haven't grown from that yet. So how do we teach teenagers to recognize that it's not cute when someone is that jealous of you, or what's the difference in just being the love part, because you're a little jealous of your mate when you're in love, but when do you cross that line? When do the men or women cross that line?
Insecurity, I think jealousy also plays a part of insecurity. That I think that if they're not insecure with the relationship, there's not going to be a trust. And like if you're doing a lot, they're not doing anything, they're going to be insecure. It's like, you need to get yourself a hobby. So jealousy is insecurity in themselves. Maybe they feel like they don't meet the power, or they don't meet the standards that you need. So if they see somebody that maybe have more money, taller, look better, nicer car, they're going to be jealous of that person because they know that person has more to offer you both ways than what I have. So you're going to be insecure and somewhat jealous of anybody that looks better, smells better, dressed better, because you have not met that goal in your life yet.
Yeah,
So,
I believe if it causes you alarm on the inside, like you said, the warning signs, then because me and my husband married 16 years, and I tell him when I'm going out the door, and he tells me, but it's healthy. He's not overbearing. If I'm late, he knows that I'm okay. He's not blowing up my phone. But somebody that's jealous, they'd be out of control. And it wouldn't be that love, care, and concern. You know the difference.
Right.
You will know the difference if they're obsessive of you or if they are truly caring. Yeah.
Because it makes you scared,
Yeah,
right? Of
right.
what you
Alarm.
are doing or not doing
Yes.
that could trigger.
Exactly.
And what if you don't answer that phone when they do call you and they've been obsessive about it, and you don't answer that phone when they call you?
Then
How do you
know,
feel then?
Then you know that's the fear factor. Then you know what's coming. You know what's gonna come.
So
when
that's
you
a
don't.
red flag.
Yeah, that's a real red flag.
There's an exercise that we do with the teens when we talk about jealousy, and really, I think focusing more on the examples and stories that we heard from survivors about that irrational jealousy, like the example you were talking about. Like, am I not supposed to walk down the street because people might be looking at me? The irrational jealousy. I know we've heard stories of their partners being jealous of the pets because you seem to be giving more attention to the pet.
Yeah.
That's a really some examples of irrational jealousy. But with the young people, we often talk about, well, what are the emotions that you're feeling when you feel jealousy? I think we all as human beings are capable of feeling some of these emotions. Jealousy could be one of them. But how do you feel when you feel jealousy? Do you feel betrayed, sad, anxious, insecure, like you were saying? You feel anger, right? You want revenge. Oh, you're talking to that girl, I'm gonna go talk to that guy, right? Okay, and then what are the emotions that you feel when you feel love? You feel happy, and like you can peace, safe. You can trust this person, right? You can't wait to talk to them and tell them about your day. And then notice how the emotions that you feel when you feel jealousy and the emotions that you feel when you feel love are opposite. They don't match. And so that's how you know that jealousy is not really a natural part of love, which is what we often think, right? That in relationships, jealousy is a given, but it doesn't really belong with the emotions that we feel when we feel love.
That's awesome. That's good. And I want to pause right here and say that we always look at the abuser as the man. And I just want to put it out there that some women are very abusive to men. And some young girls now are more out of control than the young boys. And they blame it on emotional outbursts and this mental disorder or this mental disorder. But and you can tell an abuser because they know when to abuse. If she doesn't do it with anybody else but you, then she has control. If he doesn't do it with anybody else but you, it's not a mental disorder. It's by choice. And so 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 a lot of girls are doing it now, and I don't know what it is. I don't know, but.
And a lot of that is emotional as well. It may not be always physical when it comes to a female. It can be emotional. It can be verbally when it comes to them.
Verbally, I think it's more hard than physical. I mean, both is bad, but when someone says something to you over and over again, you ain't this, you ain't this, and you remember it, and it's like, wow, that's not me. you know, or you're lying. No, I'm not. I'm not lying. You try to convince them that, no, I'm not lying.
Right.
And, you know, it's like, I swear, you know, I'm like, no. And that hurts when you know you're telling the truth and they cussing you out and telling you're lying. I'm like, no. And that really hurts, especially if it's like sleeping with the enemy in the same house with this person.
But you hear it so often, you began to doubt yourself.
Right,
like,
right.
am I really?
Exactly.
Am I really? I'm looking in the mirror every day, but am I really unattractive? Am I really this? Am I really that? Because you hear it so often, it become repetitious to you, and you begin to doubt your own self. But I think it's something big that you just said is, if they're doing something to you, whether it be male or female, and they're not doing it in front of anyone else, I just want to say that a little bit louder.
Yes.
If they're not doing it in front of anyone else, they're only doing it when you all are alone. They're choosing to do that. It's not a mental illness because you can't stop yourself from doing something.
Exactly.
They are stopping themselves from doing it from anybody else, so no one else will know.
Exactly.
That's a good red flag for you to see.
Exactly. Even other men, because my ex, someone had gotten into a fight with him. Well, it wasn't a fight. He actually beat him up in front of me, and he didn't do anything, nothing at all.
Your husband?
My ex-husband, he didn't do anything because the guy had just got out of jail, and he was bigger than him. And as he grabbed him, and he just beat the mess out of him right in front of him. He didn't fight back at all,
but
not
he
once.
Fight you.
I know you
Exactly.
were amazed at that.
I was very amazed, very amazed. But also going back to the jealousy, the insecurity in them, and that's part of what I tell in my book, because that was part of our life. He had a sexual dysfunction, and so any man was a threat to him. So he didn't even address his sexual dysfunction until after I left. And then that's when he told me, well, you know, I can go to the doctor, but in the meantime, with me, I would even try to say to him, well, you know, you can, you know, take that, you know, get that taken care of. And he wouldn't, he would just attack me on it. So it all goes back to also their insecurity and whatever that is, because if they don't identify that, they're going to continue to just do what they're doing. So it's very important to get to what is the issue with them.
Yeah, because with them, like you said, because it gets to the point where nothing you do is enough to appease that jealousy. You know, they can go through all your emails, all your phone, and it's just never enough.
Exactly.
So why do you think, as I know as adults, we can choose not to tell our family, like you were saying, because you don't want to tell everyone your business. So if you get back together, you don't still have them, you know, hanging everything over you and all of that. But as teenagers, because with that statistic that you just gave, can you give it one more time?
Georgia has the third highest percentage of high school students experiencing physical abuse from a boyfriend or girlfriend.
Third in
the nation.
In the nation. Third in the nation.
Is that like bullying or just relationship?
No, it's just a dating partner, boyfriend or girlfriend. Physical, and it's physical abuse. It's not even emotional abuse or, you know, stalking through technology.
And these are just the ones that's reported. Remember, most of them are not even reported, and we're already number 3. Exactly.
And like you said, they don't actually have to have the black eyes. They're pushing, they're shoving, they're kicking, they're pulling hair. They're using a weapon, anything to do to intimidate them. So, and these young girls are afraid.
So why, like I said, I understand about the adults not being able to tell everyone, but why are the teenagers not talking to their family members, or why are the family members or parents specifically not seeing some of these warning signs or red flags in our young kids?
Well, adults, parents don't tend to think it's an issue. When we talk about how prevalent it is and how often and how widespread the problem is, it's always a shock. Parents don't think they think it's teen drama, you know, being a hormonal, being a teenager, and in our Teen Summit, for example, that's one of the stats that we talked the most about, is that over 80% of parents don't know enough about dating violence, don't think it's an issue, and so they don't know how to recognize it. They do think sometimes, if they do see, for example, if their teen can't leave the phone alone, like you're having dinner and the phone keeps ringing, and their first instinct is, of course, about we shouldn't be having a phone on dinner, but not really think about like what's going on with
Why's your phone ringing?
Yeah, was it really?
Then teens are so good at that where they can turn their phones upside down. You can't even see if it's the same person that's calling, and you're like, oh, my teen is just a socialite. Right. But we have to look at all of that stuff. I remember when I was young, me and my mother had a great relationship. We argued all the time, but we had a good relationship where I can come and tell her everything. Yeah, and she would always tell me, you can leave your diary on the bed. I don't come in your room. I don't bother anything. Wow. As I got grown, that was all a lie. As I got grown. But I believed it because she told me she would not bother anything, and it was always the way that I left it. Nothing was shuffled around, and all of this. And as I went in the military and as I was calling home in basic training crying every night, she shared some things with me. She said, I went through everything, and she said, that's how I could have those conversations with you. I may not have them right then. She's like, are you crazy? I need to know what's going on. You tell me some things, but I knew as my daughter, you weren't going to tell me everything. Wow. Yeah. So I had to find out, but we had a large family and family members telling her this and telling her that, and she wouldn't come back and say who said it. She wouldn't say it then. I think that families have gotten away from that. Right. We give our kids so much privacy. Exactly. When my kids
technology privacy.
Exactly. Yes. You don't require passwords and all of this kind of stuff. I remember when my kids was coming up. What's the thing before Facebook?
MySpace.
My youngest son, he forgot, and he didn't know anything about it, so he would keep himself logged in. I would be reading every chance I get. Yeah. And one day his big brother said, and it was months later, and I was calling all the other parents. Well, they go into the house party, ain't gonna be no parents. And they were like, "How you know?" I said, "Cause I'm on this MySpace, I'm looking at it." And they was like, "How you get on that?" Y'all need to be trying to do it. Yes. And he knew I would go through their phone, and he would tell the kids and stuff, "Don't leave your phone around, cause your mom will go through." They be like, "Miss May, you wouldn't do that." I'm like, "Yes, I would, baby, because I be needing to know what's going on."
Yeah.
So his brother came on to, but we have to be those investigators. Yes, we have to infringe on their privacy because we need to know what's going on in our children's lives. They're not going to tell us.
When I was dating, the guys would come over to date her. I get their driver's license, make a copy, make a copy, and I said, "Now listen, if my daughter's not home by this such a time, I'm gonna send the police after you." Yeah. And I said, "I'm not gonna play," and I did that. And then my son, she likes to search in his drawer, and then when he would do something that upset me, he says, "Mom, you were crazy." And somebody would call and ask for him. I say, "I'm sorry, no one lives about that name." But I tried. As parents, we try to be a friend, to love them, but we want to be a parent too. Yes. Right. So they can respect us. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, because we were taught, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, please excuse me. Get home at night. Do your dishes, clean up your room, make up your beds, cook. We didn't have McDonald's every day. We cooked food. So as parents, we need to know about our kids, where they are, their parents, because we weren't allowed to stay over anybody's house.
Exactly. Right. And now sometimes they don't even talk to the other family. They just allow them to say, "I'm going over Stephanie's house or over David's house, and I'm going to spend the night." And you don't know anything about them. But my mom never wanted to be my friend. She became my best friend, but she didn't care if she never was. She done her job. That's right. I didn't want to be my son's friends, but I am one of their friends now. But I never wanted to be. Even now, I tell them, "I'm not your friend. I'm your mama," because I'm still going to tell you what's right. But we have to get out of that because we have to protect them, and they rely on us to take care of them. Exactly. Remember, they're only going to be 18, get up to 18. They're not going to hate you because of any of this stuff that you've done. That's right. They forget all of this little petty stuff. I mean, my mom did a lot. And, we couldn't go anywhere. I was strict, and even as a teenager, if your mom is strict, you still get a chance to do everything you want to do because you learn how to do it, right? Yes. But because of the things that she would do and things that she would say, I wouldn't go as far as I would have gone. Exactly. We have to think about that and stop want to be their friend. They have a lot of friends. They do. They do. That are steering them in the wrong direction. Exactly. If you want to be the friend that's going to steer them in the right direction. Exactly. But we have to let go of this, I want to trust them. You can only trust them as far as you can see them. Talking from an evangelist's daughter
who had 12 brothers and sisters, and everyone that they knew was still aunts and uncles of ours as well. So, you know, we come from a small town, so you know you're going to see somebody everywhere. I still did what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So you have to think about that. So imagine in a big place like Georgia.
Yes.
How many places they can go and how many things that they can do
Exactly.
if you don't be involved in their
We got
lives.
spanks back there. I got spanked with a belt, a switch.
Someone had that on Facebook Day. What all did you get with? I was like to myself, all of them, they
Mama
all
said,
need to be in jail.
Mama said, knock the living out of you, honey.
And I don't so much believe in that now because you learn
Right.
once you become parents. I had one that needed spankings and one that needed punishments.
Right.
Even now with my grandkids, I don't see any one of them right now that even need spankings. They
Right.
need talking to and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So I don't think just because I was raised with that, it didn't kill me.
Right.
And I got beat with everything, you know, and I'm light skinned, so they didn't leave any marks. They knew how not to leave the marks. If they did, it was under them clothes. And you wasn't going to see them at GM either. They were smart, but they weren't going to jail. And we wasn't crazy enough to call the police on them.
Right, right.
You know, you have
right.
kids now that tell you, I'll call 911. My mama said, call them. I'll go spend that time for you. I had you.
I'll take you to the world. I'll
Bring
you
you
take you out.
Yes, that's what they would say. But we just have to get back to that. It's not even about the business, but I think it's more about the communication.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
The communication, like I said, me and my youngest son, we used to go head and head because we're so much alike. You know, our conversations are 5 minutes. Can't go any more than 5 minutes. It becomes a fuss match. And I don't fuss with children. But I got a chance to tell him everything that I need to tell him in those 5 minutes because I'm thinking all the time what lesson he needs to learn. So when he began to go out without his brother, because they always did everything together until his brother got 15, but when he began to go out with his brother, it would be enough for him. If somebody else is fighting, he on that phone calling me, Mama, come get me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just dropped you out, but at the same time, I'm making that wheelie turning around. And I was so proud that he would do that because he wouldn't be the person that I thought would do that. But it's the communication, it's the things that we tell them, it's the lessons that we give them. So when that split second comes, that reality can come back.
Yeah.
I remember when one of my nieces told me that, oh, I'm smart, I'm not going to have sex until I'm married. And I was like, I remember telling her specifically, when that time comes, and this is for everything that we do, sometime that common sense goes right out your head. So therefore, I'm telling you, so now that common sense can pop in there in that split second that it's going to take, because after that split second, it's gone. So we have to have those conversations with our children, with our young women, and with our young men.
Yes.
I have men, and I teach them that don't put your hand on anyone.
Yes,
Don't
indeed.
do that.
Yes, indeed.
Have conversation. If you got to do that, if you got to be controlling, if you got to be jealous, you don't need to be with that person. We have to have those conversations with our children now.
Yeah, I tell my son, he's 22, and I tell him, I've been with your dad how many years? 20 something. Have you ever seen him put his hand on me? No. Have I ever put my hand on him? No.
There's no reason.
Yeah. And so if you get in a relationship and she put her hands on you, then it's time to exit.
Exactly.
It's time to exit.
Right.
Because I had you, and I respect you and love you enough not to put my hand in your face. And your dad had you, and he respect you and love you enough not to put his hand in your face. And he 200 and something pounds, and he could if he wanted to. But then it goes back to I love you enough not to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we have to teach our young women too not to, just because they're men, don't think that everyone is teaching their boys
exactly.
and their men not to fight back.
Exactly.
Because if a woman hit them sometimes out of instinct, out of reflex or something, it may come back. Keep your hands to yourself. And I know our emotions run higher, but keep your hands to yourself. I think that's something else we need to teach. But also, you know, sometimes you need to close your mouth. And I have that problem. Yeah. You can't tell. But I have that problem. Sometimes you have to learn to close your mouth.
Yes.
If you know you're going to do something, you don't have to tell it.
Yes. Yes.
Just go ahead on and do it. If you know you're going to leave, don't tell that man that you're going to leave him. Just go ahead on and do it. But I think that's something else that we need to teach them. What are some of the things that y'all are teaching teenagers?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when we talk to parents, we always talk about, you know, how to identify the warning signs. You know, if your teen is doing this, if your teen is doing that, you know, it's time to have that conversation. And I'm glad you said that, because that's what we encourage, you know, for that parent to be the source for that teenager and be able to have that conversation and keep the doors of communication open. I think sometimes adults, we tend to forget what it was like to be 16 years old, you know, and you know, because we've overcome that, you know. But I remember what it was like to be in love when I was 16 years old, and how you felt like that was it. That was gonna be the love for eternity.
Yes.
And you know, it may not be the case, but you know what? I still remember it, and it's important to have it in our minds because that's how they're feeling. That's, you know, a lot of teenagers come and ask us, you know, why do adults call it puppy love? But it's because it feels very real for them at that moment, you know. And so I think sometimes we have to remember that sometimes we need to keep the doors of communication open, so that you know, they don't shut us out. And also talk about, like you said, something else about safety planning. You know, if you're going to this party, you know, this is just call me anytime if you need me to pick me up. I'll do this. There's this other. We have a list of resources that we share with them, and we safety plan with them, because it's not just about again being in an abusive relationship. But again, if you're going off to college, you know, a lot of young women before school starts, they've already been sexually assaulted, and so how do you prepare for that? You know, how do you prepare because you've been very trusting as of now, right? But how do you prepare for that? So we have a list of resources that we share. One of them is called Circle of Six, and it's a free phone app, and it requires a smartphone. But what you do with Circle of Six is you have 6 pre-selected contacts that are your besties, that your mom or whatever, you know. But it sends, with 2 taps, it'll send out a message to those 6 contacts, and it says, I think I'm in trouble, can you come get me? And it sends out the GPS location, you know. So those are things that you can share and talk about, you know. What is your safety plan? You're going out, you know, what do you do if something happens, you know, and just talk through some of those scenarios, so that they can, if that happens, you know, they can think back to those.
Okay, awesome. Let me just say this right quick. We just had a caller to call in. If you call back in at 478-569-6474, we'll be able to take your call, please. Miss LaNita, you had something?
Yeah, you know, I was going to say something, you know, for me, I always tell Mr. Rain or my family where I'm going, what I'm doing. I'm home. I got home and safe. This is where I'm going. Because there's so much going on in the world. Not just in Atlanta, but in the world today. People being kidnapped, abused, or drive-bys, or whatever. So I always share with someone, especially Miss Lorraine, where I'm going, what time I'm coming back, this is what I'm doing. Or I go with someone. And it's so important, I think, that people, if you're in a relationship, maybe if you're dating, date with another couple. Date with another couple. Date. That way you're protected. And also, when you just met someone, you know, Facebook has a lot of ways of meeting new people or whatever. Take another friend with you. Double date. You know, get to know that person. Just don't go by yourself, because you don't really know that person. You really don't know that person.
Exactly.
So protect yourself. You know, double date with somebody. Keep double dating.
Because you said before, you don't get the real person, at least for the first 90 days. You don't get the real person, right?
Exactly.
That's another thing that we've seen in in our clients that we serve, is that the relationship got serious very quickly. You know, within a couple of months, they may have already been living together, expecting a child. And with the teens, you know, we talk about, you know, you need time to get to know someone and see how they, you know, how they behave when you bring them home and meet your parents, hang out with other friends outside of school, right? How do they act? And that takes time, and it, depending on the person, it may take longer time, right? So the fact that, like, again, within a couple of months things are getting very serious, is maybe it's time again to have that conversation. You know what, things are getting too serious too fast, and I need more time, you know.
And if you feel like you can't, that's another red flag. If they're pushing you to do something that you don't want to do, that your mind is telling you don't want to do, if they're pushing you to do it, that's another red flag. If you're scared that person's going to leave you.
And I think even with the internet period and social media, you don't really know the person, but a lot of people think they do. So relationships now is just all over the place, and it's just different than when I was growing up, because we didn't have all of that. So now an abuser can actually use a lot more resources, even stalking on Facebook and stalking on Twitter and everything like that. So we have a whole different scenario.
So we need
with
to use that
domestic
for the
violence.
other way as well, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And
yes.
domestic violence now is being broadened because it just doesn't encompass male, female. The dynamics have changed. Elderly abuse, all of that encompasses domestic violence. So, yeah, and I think, like you said, education, communication, keep talking about it, and churches. And a lot of people say it's not talked about in churches.
Right.
We have a grand pastor that allowed
Yes,
me
we
to
do.
talk about it. Yeah, and so he allowed me to talk about all of that in churches, and that's where people think, oh, I can't tell it here, but you definitely need to be able to tell it. If you can't tell it nowhere else, you ought to be able to tell it there. But people feel shame. The elderly feel shame, and now it's same-sex partners too. And so people just feel the shame. Once we remove the shame, the stigma, we give them the tools, then it turns out for the better. We educate people, because then the kids are not affected. And like when Partners Against Domestic Violence, kids they have social issues, bedwetting, younger kids, suicidal thoughts, depression, teen drinking. It's a whole gamut of things that go with that until we just break the cycle.
Once you talk about it, it's kind of like when something bad happens, well, he did that to me too. Oh, he did that to me. You know, when something happens, someone raped somebody, whether it's a pastor or someone big in the limelight. Well, he did this to me. Well, he did this to me. People are going to come out of their comfort zone and say, well, this happened to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you didn't take the time to do all the digging beforehand. If he kept you from everyone else, from around his immediate family, from around friends and ex-girlfriends and stuff like, if he kept you from around all of those people, that something was missing that he don't want you to see. It's some reason why he's keeping you away from them. So that's when, I don't know which one said it, you have to go back in, you have to really dig. I mean, this is for your protection. If he getting mad about you digging and you don't trust him and all of that, I trust you, but I don't see any family member around here, because if you get, you can talk to family over the phone, but if you get in front of them, that body language, those facial expressions, they're going to say more than that mouth may say. Over the phone, they may say, oh no, he's a good guy, honey, he's been in good relationship, da. But if you talk to them in person, you're going to see a little bit more than what you're hearing. And that's what we need to go back and do. And the other thing I think we need to go back and do, we need to go back into, it takes a whole community. And especially when it comes to our team, we have to listen to what other people are saying sometimes. Like I said, my mom would listen to what everybody else said. There's no use to me saying that it was a lie, because whatever they said was written in stone, and I was lying anyhow, whether I was or not. But we have to get back to that, because other people can see, like I said, we're angels in front of our parents. But other people see how we act in the streets. My mom would have never known my brother cursed until my grandmother told her, because she heard him behind the house. He had no idea that she even heard him. I remember them talking on the phone, and my grandmother told her. But we have to listen to what other family members are saying. You have some family members that aunts and uncles can't even say anything to the children. They're scared to say something to the children. And I'm like, why? I'm saying, when I was coming up, I need them to go ahead on and tell me. I need them to go ahead on and spank me or beat me or whatever they're going to do, and just leave it there. Don't even go and tell my parents, because then they got to be number 2 spanking or beating, right?
The neighbor next door.
Exactly. If my godmother called from across the street and said something, it was stone. Ain't no use to me saying. If my cousin around the corner would say, I saw her fighting when she got off the bus, and I tried to stop her, and she called me a B, and this happened for real. And I did not call her that, and I'm like, she need to quit peeping out the window and all this. And it was true, I had called her that, because I got sick of her peeping out the window telling on me. But my parents listen, and not all the time do you have to act on what someone else say, but you need to let your child know eyes are everywhere, and I can see everything.
My mom used to tell me, I know everything you do.
Right.
God knows. And when my best girlfriend got pregnant, I said, girl, you didn't tell me you was doing that, because my mother scared me so badly I dare not to do anything because she said she knew everything, and I believed she knew everything I was doing, and I did not do anything because my mother told me that, and I believed her. And when she got mad, she looked ugly. I mean, she looked real
I believe it too, but some things I was still willing to do to get in trouble. I was too, and she was a little 5'5", something spicy and hot, but I still was going to do some of the things that I wanted to do because I couldn't do, and I couldn't breathe really. But I still got a chance to do it, and that's why I say your children are going to get a chance to do some things. You just have to stop them from doing the big things, but you have to pay attention to everything. Even I have grown sons now. We text all the time. That texting is good for me sometimes because I just want to get my point across. But sometimes I need to hear that voice. Sometimes I need to see that face when you're talking to me because I can see more and I can hear more than that texting allows me to do. I'm just trying to get my point across, telling you what I want to say and getting smart or whatever,
You're right
as a
about
parent.
Because when my mom read my book, she was like, where was I at? I mean, she was hurt. And I had to tell her as a teenager, I was only going to let you know so much about what when you're doing bad. You just not, you don't announce it to the world. Hey, I'm doing this against what you've told me. So again, is that, like you said, that secretive thing. We were best friends like this, but when I started doing what I knew, like you said, I wanted to do and didn't want to, we got like this. And so and then but God, He restored that relationship because again, I was doing things I knew that I didn't want, and so she wasn't gonna find out until I told her, if I ever told her. Right.
So let me ask a question because a lot of people think that you have to be at a certain income level, a low income level or something for you to be involved in some of this. If I have money, this is not going to happen to me.
No, it happens to the rich, the poor, everyone. It happens to, and that's just it. And then sometimes though, when because this is what I experienced as an advocate, was sometimes when the women had money, it was hard for them because they were used to living a certain lifestyle. So I even had one lady. She told me, she said, "Well, I can't go into a shelter because I'm used to living a certain way." And and then what my goal was to bring even shelters into those communities because I don't care how rich the community is, they need a home so that you can have a place to go because no one should ever have to risk their life just because they want to sacrifice their lifestyle.
That is so true. That is so true. And that is a lot of I've seen some doctors and lawyers' wives and they are so shameful. And they don't want to lose the life that they've become accustomed to. The cars and the monies and the jewelry and the furs, and then the shame of having to walk away and somebody else living what they think is a fabulous marriage, when all along you don't even know what's going on over there. Maybe she's doing the same thing you're doing, which is trying to get by. But in their mind's eye, the shame and the not wanting to give up how I've been living.
A lot of people stay in a bad relationship because of the finances. They stay because they feel, I can't do this by myself. I'm dependent on his money or our money. We got the house, we got the cars, we got this, we got that. The kids, what the kids going to say. So they stay into that bad relationship. And then they say, like one was said to be, to death do we part, for rich or for poor, to death do we part, for better or for worse. I'm like, no. No. And that's, I said no, because that was thrown in my face that I need to stay in that relationship and to continue to live upstairs, locked up in a room. I said, no, I'm not happy. And like I said, people live in a bad relationship for the finances, for the kids, for society. Society think, how you see, oh, they look like the perfect couple. They never argued. They had a sweet little dog, and next thing you know, you see on the news, or he done shot her and shot himself. Get out.
Exactly.
There's no perfect relationship. There's no perfect marriage.
But communication, I think, really not argue. Communication, talk. And I used to tell people, if you can't talk, write it down. If you could take that time out and write down what your feelings are and pass the notes to each other, rather than to speak, because our voices could say things out of anger. But if you're writing, you have to take that time to write. You make me sick, you did this, and you're going to have to take that time to write that down. And by the time you write it down, maybe some of the anger and the tension has eased out. You know, that's what I would say to do, rather than to talk, because you're going to argue back and forth, argue back and forth. You know, and I'm like,
And everyone wants to win the argument.
right.
Right, that's the truth.
So getting back to something that you said early on, that you do your advocacy a little bit different. You actually go to the abusers.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that, and how do you get in contact with the abusers?
Well, actually, I had started the first national hotline. It was 1-888 for abuser. And what I used to speak at the churches. So we were on the Word Network one Sunday, and we put the abuser hotline up there, and the phone rang off the hook. And so I had abusers calling me from all over the country. Wow. And one man, he called and he said that he was abusing his wife, and he said he didn't want to do it anymore, and he said he needed help. And what I know is that once it gets to court, by the time you get to court, it's already escalated to the level that you have to go to court. So when the court steps in, they have no, of course, feelings in it. And then if they lash out at the abuser and they say, oh, you're going to go to anger management, that abuser, he's either going to comply or he's going to abuse even more. And then sometimes they don't care, and that's when they kill. So what I wanted to do was to put in place an avenue for that abuser to have a choice. And if they don't have a choice, then they're going to just continue on doing what they're doing. So that's where I started doing the work with the abuser, and I got such a great response. And then just to see that and to know that this victim, maybe she would have survived if he had gotten help. That needs to be in place, and I'm still going to go forward. Since I moved from New Jersey to Georgia, to tell you the truth, I haven't even done my advocacy work, but I have just started reaching back out with my book and with the advocacy work, because I definitely want to do it.
As you see the statistics, you definitely you are needed.
Yes.
Awesome.
You are needed, and I think that is awesome.
That is
I don't hear
beyond
anyone else
awesome.
talk about that they actually want to help the abusers, and that's where it starts. Like you said, if not, you're going to continually help having victims if you don't help the abuser. So I think that is awesome, awesome.
Yes.
And it leads us right into, why do people wait until it gets so bad to either they feel like the only way out is they have to kill someone or someone has to kill them?
Right, exactly. Because that's when the abuse gets to that level where they don't care. And then sometimes, like I know, and it's probably not just me, but when he finally got arrested the one time, I was so scared, because he told me, he said, if I ever go to jail and I lose my job, he said, I'm going to kill you. He said, because you're going to be done messed up my life. So I never wanted him to go to jail, but it would be my neighbors that would call, and then the police would come. And then I had finally went and got an order of protection, and then that's when he got arrested on the order of protection. And I was just hoping that he wouldn't. So when he got out, he just was like a different person. But the abuse started again once that ran out, because in New York, they used to only last for one year. But
Did you get back with him after that year?
yeah, I still stayed. I still stayed. And I just kept hoping that it would get better. Yeah, hoping it would get better. And then the final thing was, I thought we were I said, well, a house is missing. We didn't have a house. We bought a house, and a month after, he had me on the kitchen floor choking me, and I had tenants upstairs.
So let me ask you, how long, I mean, and I hear women all the time, and I talk to a lot of women before I do any show. I try to really go out and really find out so I can understand. I talk to a lot of women and men who have been in domestic violence situations. How many times does it have to happen before you say, oh, this is not good?
And you know what I say? I have that in my book too. I was afraid to leave, and I was afraid to stay. And that's a bad place to be, because I felt that if I did go, he's going to find me and kill me, and I didn't want to die. So I felt also, if I stay, he's going to kill me. And then at one point, I even told him how I wanted my funeral, because I just knew. And at that point, I believe I was like 22, and I couldn't see myself being 25 at that time. So I sat him down, and I said, this is how I want my funeral, and I know you're going to kill me. And he agreed. He agreed.
Wow.
Wow. Yep.
Wow.
So, ladies, how many times did you, I mean, because I want to give some people concrete information here. How many times should you, I know the emotional abuse, I know the verbal abuse,
But when they actually are touching you, how many times should you allow that to happen before you know, say, hey, this is not?
I don't think it's a number. I think again, it's a place of a mental control, and he promises I won't do it again, and then the second time is worse than the third. But then he promises he won't do it again, and then you'll have maybe 4 or 5 years of him not doing it again. But then that third time could be so severe that, I mean,
Could be the end of your life.
Yeah.
Well, you know, for me, you know, I kept saying, we're getting a divorce. Go ahead, I don't care, I don't need you. Go ahead, I don't care, I don't need you. And I would say it all the time, you know, we're going to get divorced, I'm leaving. Go ahead, I don't need you, where I knew he did need me because I was the one that was taking care of him. Okay, he kept saying, I kept saying, we're going to get a divorce. And he would say, go ahead. I don't need you. Leave. I don't need you. And I would say that hoping that he would say, oh, honey, let's try to work this out. We even got counseling. But he thought it was me that had the problem, not him. And I was hoping he would say, you know, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to go to NA because he was an addict. He was a drug addict. He was a crack addict. And I was hoping that he said, well, let's go to counseling about my drug habits and all this, hoping that he would do better. And I would say, well, we're going to, you know, I'm going to leave you. You know, I can't deal with this anymore. Well, go ahead, I don't need you. But I knew that if I left, he wouldn't have anything because I was the provider. So when I did decide to leave, one day I woke up and got the movers. He said, oh, you're going to leave me, huh? Doing an Ike. You gonna leave me, huh? You gonna leave me? I said, yes, I'm leaving you. And then he would not allow me to take some of my personal things, but I got movers and I left. But, you know, it took some time. You know, it's like, I'm tired of this. But I kept saying, if I threatened him, telling him, I'm going to divorce you and I'm going to leave you. If he would have said, I will try to get counseling. I will go to some addict meetings, some AA, NA meetings with you, try to help myself. I try to get him in treatment center. But he never would do that. So I said, enough is enough. So when I left, that's all she wrote.
But do you think if he had gone and gotten some help with his crack that he was addicted to, he would become addicted to something else? Like you, maybe?
He has a lot, and I'm not saying I don't have bad habits, but he had a slew of things against him, and I kept thinking, I can make him better. Because he was that tall, dark, handsome man that I said, I'm going to make him a good man, get him off of drugs, find him a job, dress him up so he can look nice to society. Wrong.
We can only change ourselves. We can't change anyone else. We can only change ourselves.
Wrong. So, yeah, I thought that I could help him. I thought I could make him better. I thought that I could do these wonderful things and magic for him. And, you know, I knew these things about him, but I kept saying there's good in everybody. God makes all of us. There's good in everybody. I can make him better. I can change him. But see, people change. But I can't change people. Right. He has to want to change. You know, one day he may get off of his drugs, be a nicer person, but it won't be with me.
Exactly. You can still pray for him from afar. Want the best from him from afar.
Wow.
It's definitely.
You know, I wanted to mention, you mentioned Ike Turner. So, yes, it was Tina Turner's book that actually encouraged me the first time to leave. Her book, I, Tina, before she did the movie. After I read her book, I had this strength in me, and I knew I could leave. And then it didn't happen then, but that just gave me that glimpse of hope and strength. And that's why I encourage everyone to tell their story and don't be ashamed, because no matter what happens in this life, we are all here and we all go through like similar, or if it's not similar, someone else can learn from what you went through. So even in the churches, when I was going to the churches, a lot of them, they didn't have domestic violence. They didn't even talk about it. So one day we were doing a show, And then it was a police officer there, a female police officer, and she was telling me that she had gotten a call. She was also the counselor in the community, but she had gotten a call, and she said, I recognize this address. And when she got there, it was the pastor's house, and he had beat his wife so bad that she said her face was just all disfigured. And she said she took her out, and she took her to her house, and she said that the pastor was at church the next Sunday.
Yes.
She said this happened on Friday. She said Sunday he was in the pulpit preaching like he had never done anything. And she said she sat there, and she said she just looked, and she said yet his wife was at her house all healing. And so it's very important to tell your story, and then also for the churches to be more involved.
Exactly.
Yeah, it happens in whether you have religion or don't have religion, and I always tend to be suspicious when when there's no domestic violence being talked about at the church, because it may sometimes, unfortunately, it's coming from the pulpit.
Exactly.
It's sad. It's unfortunate.
And I like Tina. I look at her now. She's beautiful in her 70s, and Ike is dead, and she's still a strong woman. Ike may had helped her to sing and brought her to where she was, but he was abusive to her, and he tried to tear her down. And he kept saying to her, "You promised me you never leave me. You promised you never leave me." I remember in that part of the movie, because she said, "I won't never leave you. I won't never leave you." And she left him, He used that. He used that to try to keep her, her control. And then I think about Mary J. Blige, the situation with her manager, and how she had to pay him $30,000 a month because she'd been through a lot. She was had some bad relationships and so forth. So we don't know. We really don't know who's gone through what. Some people keep it a hush hush and don't want to share with anybody, but you need to talk about it because we don't want to find you dead. We don't want to mentally get disturbed because it can affect your mind mentally, and mental things will kill you.
Yeah, it can bring about depression, PTSD, anxiety, all this. But that perhaps were not there before, but this high tension that you're constantly living under can bring those things about. And I want to refer back to something Mechelle said about the statistics about a woman may try to leave about an average of 7 times, and it tends to be because the survivor is trying to make the violence stop. Not necessarily they want to end the relationship, but they just want to stop the violence. And sometimes they don't know how to do it. They may call the police and not really want to press charges. It's just to de-escalate the situation. And you were asking about something about like the last straw. What was the last straw that finally... And I think hearing the women just in the table is about like envisioning that what life will be like without this person, and really making that plan, right? Because at the time you may have again wanted to. We have clients in our shelter that come just for a couple of days until things cool off, and then they go back. Again, because that can make the family and friends feel really frustrated because you keep going back and burn those bridges. But I think it's until and maybe you guys can remember that until you start to really make that plan about what life will be like without this person, that you're ready to take that step.
I think she said it best. Just what it would be like without the abuse and stuff like that.
Right.
And I like what you said. Once you get enough strength, and that's why I guess the part of me wanting to be the coach in me wanting to coach somebody out of it. Once you do the work, you find out who you are, your worth. But you really got to look back to the root. Is it family? Is it because that's where his family was? Was it something in me? Once you identify what that thing is that's keeping you bound to that relationship, and then start to gradually cut the cords. I mean, you can't do it. You're not going to be able to do it quickly. I mean, because that's your livelihood. That's part of who you are. That's the essence of who you are. Your relationship with this person. But until you can find out what the core issue is. Is it me?
I don't care about the relationship. I don't care about the, I'm on the street. If someone is beating me, though,
but not just
I just,
I think, I got the gun, I got choked, got pushed down, but the mental, verbal, getting up in my face, and grabbing my chain and different things like that. And I can remember one time I got on my tippy toes because he's 6'4" and I'm 5'5".
Wow.
And I got on my tippy toes and I said, I am not afraid of you. And I was, but I said, God got me. He said, oh my, and I started praying. I said, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. I like this man, he's like an exorcism. He got demons in his head, and I started praying, hoping that he would understand that God got me. But then again, I'm like, he's just coming off a binge.
Yeah.
And I can remember one time he did some heroin or whatever, and he was some speedol or whatever. He was hallucinating. I'm like, he said, Nita, why you call the police? I said, I didn't call no police. He said, don't you see those people? I said, what people? Wow.
so I guess we should think about the mental abuse and the verbal abuse before it even get to the physical abuse. Those are the red flags that we need to be looking for
Right.
in relationships, and especially in our teens, because we want more survivors.
We do.
We want to educate people more. We want to have more communication about domestic violence before it gets to the point, because every time you turn on the news you hear someone has been killed or someone has been shot in domestic violence. Every time, I'm a social media person, every time you get on your Facebook page, you got something going on about someone has beaten someone up in a relationship and all of this. So to stop that, we have to find a way, and I know partnership is doing a lot of that. So tell the people tell our viewers how they can get in touch with you.
We have a 24-hour crisis line that is, someone will always answer the number.
Jack, if you'll put that image up for me, please.
Yes, the number is 404-873-1766.
You should say partnership.
404-873-1766. That's the hotline for PADB for short, and it's 24-hour.
And I think it's on one of the images that I sent you as well.
So if anybody needs information, resources, asking on behalf of, calling on behalf of someone else, anytime they can call that number.
All right, that's the number there. If you're in Atlanta, in Fulton County, or in
Gwinnett, and sometimes we get calls from all over, even from out of state, and we'll just direct them to their local agency if that seems to be the best solution. So, but yeah, we pretty much take all sorts of
so
calls.
if you're in any kind of abusive relationship, if you've seen some red flags, if you don't know for sure, call that number and talk to someone and let them be able to help you and guide you in the right direction, because we want you to be a survivor. We don't want you to wait until something drastic happens. Mechelle, you want to talk about your book a little bit? Give us a little information about your book and where they can find your book and the workbook.
Okay. The book is on Amazon. Both books are on Amazon.
The Unmasking?
Yes, Unmasking is on Amazon, and then Unmasked and UnAshamed, which is a workbook. Both are on Amazon.com. You can also always give out my number, 678-206-3146. That's my cell number, comes directly to me. And basically I speak at churches anywhere, do a lot of work with the youth, again, because I think it's very important to reach them at that stage. And also, again, when you come to me, when I talk about it, is no shame. And that's what I think keeps a lot of people in the relationships that they are. And once you're out of that, you get your power back, you get your control back, you get your identity back, and you get your strength back, and then you're able to soar come what may, even if you have to stay in a shelter. And your whole lifestyle has changed. Your identity and your worth becomes more than a material value. Yeah.
That's awesome. Tell us about your book.
Yes. My book is The Blood and Tears of Domestic Violence, A Survivor's Revelation, and it's on Amazon as well. And so far, this book came out in 2008, and I know that it's been all over. I've gotten contacted by even celebrities that have read it, and it's impacted a lot of people. I also have saved a couple of lives that I know, as well as I was on Facebook one day, and someone wanted me to speak to a young lady. She was getting ready to take her life, and she said she had the pills right there, and she couldn't take the abuse anymore. And after she spoke to me, she was so thankful. So I'm saying everyone that has a story should write it. And it doesn't matter whether one person gets your story. You don't know who you're going to help. And I'm so thankful that through all that I went through, I never thought that I would even speak and tell my story, but I'm so thankful that I did, because I see the impact and the importance of telling your story.
Right. And LaNita, I know that you're getting ready to...
Yes, I'm working on my book still. It's called Tall, Dark, Handsome, But I've already got it copyright, so I'm still working on that, plus some other things I'm working on. So, but I want to thank everybody for listening, and I've learned something, and it is very emotional. And you said Atlanta is eighth?
Third.
Eighth when it comes to killings. Georgia ranks eighth.
And that is
eight nationally.
Sad to hear that. And I know when I went down to report my case, they said it was 64 cases a day that are reported.
Wow.
And that just blew me away.
Wow.
I don't know what it is now, but that just blew me away to know that. But this has been very interesting, and I hope
we're
that
not
we can
done yet.
some-
We still got a few more minutes. If we have anyone that want to call in, and or if you have any questions or have any comments, you can do so at 478-569-6474. We have just a few minutes left. Yes, ma'am,
I have a
Mr. Chair.
question for you. I detect that accent.
Oh, yes.
So, do you guys have, at the Partners Against Domestic Violence, do you have someone that speaks different languages, especially Spanish?
Yeah.
And so, do you guys have that avenue for people who may speak a different language and need safety?
Yes, we have quite a few Spanish-speaking advocates
Right.
that work inside the shelter
Yes.
and in the community. I'm from Mexico, so I speak Spanish.
Fantastic.
And we do get some calls from other survivors who may not speak Spanish, but they speak other languages. In those cases, we, especially when it's through the hotline, we use a language line.
All right.
Because we know that, especially for immigrant survivors who are experiencing domestic violence, that may be being threatened that that they're gonna get them deported, that they're never gonna see their children away. So we know that it's important to have those resources available for those
And didn't you guys recently do something at the Capitol that helps secure them from being deported if they?
Well, at the Capitol, we participate. There's a day assigned for advocates all over the state to come and talk to legislators about the laws that are being proposed, the ones that are help our clients, the ones that don't help our clients. And that usually is in February. So February is, and I don't have the date with me, but usually around February, all the agencies we go, and it's called the Stop Violence Against Women Day. So we all go, we prepare in the morning on, with the specific bills that we're going to talk to legislators about, and then we just go and talk to them.
Right.
So that information is usually distributed through the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So I encourage you to go to their website, because they'll be the ones who announce when the date is set and so on. So we all go and talk to people.
Okay, fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything anybody else want to add? Because I want to shout out someone that's doing something to give back to domestic violence abusers. She wasn't able to be here today, but they're getting backpacks and school supplies, such as for hassle-free, a hassle for some households. Kennedy's Safe House Foundation is starting a book bag and school supply drive now through July the 15th. If you would like to donate any items, please contact 404-418-2441. Jack, would you put that image up for me if you don't mind, please? It's the one with the little kids on it. that one, you can also participate in that as well. That is great. So they know that, once they do leave this person, right, they don't have the income that's needed. They can't get the supplies for their children. So this is a way to give back for them as well. So you can contact this number if you are interested in doing that as well. And you have until July the 15th. All of your information, I want to make sure you go to the live feed on my page and put your direct information on there, the name of your book, where they can find your book, how they can contact you. And I think that's awesome. That tells you that Miss Mechelle, Prophetess Mechelle Stephens, really want to help. She gave you her cell phone number. So if you are thinking that you've seen some red flags, please call her personally. Call this organization. Don't stay in these relationships if you notice these red flags. As I say, because I see them most of the time when they've gotten to the point where I see the physical abuse. But if you're getting the mental abuse, if you're getting the physical abuse, you need to start there. You need to look at that and say, before it escalates to the physical abuse, don't wait until your life is where someone's going to take your life, or where you feel like you have to take someone else's life just to be able to live and not be in fear anymore. Don't go that route. Go and get some help before then, because we want you to be survivors. Mothers, fathers, aunties, uncles, community, talk to these young people about domestic violence, about their relationships, what they should and should not be having to put up with, other red flags that they should be looking for in their relationships. As you said, we were number 3 in Georgia in the nation for teenage abuse. Number 3 in the nation for teenage. So I don't know if there's a correlation or not, but I'm going to say it is. If we're number 3 as for teenagers, and then we're number 8 for
fatalities, killings.
I think there's some kind of correlation there. So I think to get to the root of it, we need to start early on, way before teenage years, in our preteens. We need to begin to talk about this. I know it's not an easy topic, just like when we talked about sex trafficking. Now we're talking about domestic violence. None of these things are easy to talk about our kids, to our kids about, until after it happens. And how is that conversation is going to be? You have to be strong enough to say, my child, this may not ever happen to them, but just in case, I want them to know how to protect themselves. Education and prevention is the best way to do that. Communication, communicating with them, letting them know that no matter how bad it is, they can come to you and they can talk to you about it. And you're going to be there, and you're not going to be judgmental, and you're going to be there to listen to them. Communication has to be there. We have to stop it somewhere. And hopefully this show is one of the catalysts that's going to help stop it. So if you see any red flags in your preteens and your teen, because they're dating early, because we can't wait till they're teenagers. Statistics are already on that. Y'all don't have any on preteens, right?
I mean, sometimes we get asked to come talk to elementary schools, because
I think that's when it needs to start.
You can never really be too young to have that conversation about healthy relationships, respect, boundaries, good communication, because there are some kids that don't know any of that. You know what that looks like. So communication, talk to them young, so that when they grow up, we won't be number 8 anymore. We won't be number 3 by the time they get teenagers. Thank you so much to our viewers. Thank you so much to our guests for coming on to Women of Empowerment Radio, where we empower you. We'll see you again the second Sunday of July, and we'll be talking about marijuana. Should it be legal? Yes or no? Why?
The biggest station in the world, playing all of today's hits. You're listening to Instinct Radio.